Hey, what's up, comrades? Hope everyone's doing great. We pick up in Nikke chapter 26, The Return, right where we left off at 25. So what's going on? So there's a lot of back and forth between Red Hood, the counters, Dorothy. Eventually, Chime speaks up, as well as Crown, and they reinforce the fact that Rappy was there, and then she like morphed into what we see as Red Hood. So it's not that Red Hood did anything with Rappy or anything, but she literally transformed Red Hood, just like Red Hood saying. So at some point, Ainz is like, "Wait, who are you guys?" And they're like, "The White Knights." And then Chime's like, "You remember me, right?" And we do, because she's from the Gold Ship event, not Gold Chi, the Uma, but Gold Ship with like masts. What is it called? Banner story. And we're like, "Oh yeah," and she's like, "Hooray!" So Dora still has doubts about this and that she's actually Red Hood, and she convinces her by stating stuff that only Dora would know, or the other goddesses from Red Ash. Like, there's no way Rappy or someone pretending to be Red Hood would know anything about this. At that point, Red Hood's like, "Hey, we got to get going." Rappy's like really screaming in my head, and it's like, what's she telling you to do? And it's like, she's telling me to go home. So we start walking with her. After everyone starts walking ahead, we get a call from Ingrid. We say like, "Hey, we found Red Hood," and she logs off immediately, and then reaches out to us via like this encrypted text with like a really silly like name. She then explains that both Red Hood and Rappy's cores exist in Rappy's body. That Rappy has always maintained control, but that she can access Red Hood's core as well. And that when she activates Red Hood's core, her core and Red Hood's core like fight each other, and it creates some sort of like friction, which makes her more powerful than a heretic, right? Which is why she's able to beat the shit out of like 2 heretics and Chatterbox when she activates it fully. And that's why she kicks so much ass, and why she was able to be even better than Doro, who is, again, like a Grimm's model, which is like the top of the line models. She has some... let's see. Oh, there's been one other time when Red Hood completely took over, and they had to... So whenever Red Hood starts to take over the system, because Rappy exerts herself and uses all this energy, there's like a toxin that Rappy's body produces that kind of like kills the Red Hood and like recreates it inside her, the persona, right? But one time Red Hood, before, just like now, the Red Hood took over completely, and so they had to inject her externally with the toxin to be able to force her back into Rappy. And then we question like, "Oh, is that what this injection gun is?" And it's like, yes, that is exactly what this is. So what are we doing now? Oh, Rappy keeps telling Red Hood that she needs to go home, so that's where we're kind of going. And then Ingrid gets like super quiet, and she mentions that Red Hood... Oh, she gets super quiet about the fact that Rappy is speaking to Red Hood, and Red Hood is talking to her back. And then we're like, "So, has that ever happened before?" But the opposite? Like, has Red Hood ever spoken to Rappy? And she's like, "Yes." And it's like, "What did she say?" And Rappy told Ingrid before that Red Hood was speaking to her and told her to destroy the Ark. So be careful and monitor her behavior, just in case anything gets too crazy. Because I don't need Red Hood going and destroying the Ark. Anyway, also don't tell anybody about this, except the counters. And you can tell the pilgrims, because who gives a fuck about them? Just people in the Ark, who are not the counters. They can't know about this. It would change everything. Red Hood still being alive, Rappy having 2 cores, the whole thing would just be like a hot mess. So we think about this and how the information about the Goddess Squad has been completely erased. And then we remember Rapunzel talking to Rappy a while ago about Red Hood. And about the Goddess Squad and all that stuff. Because Rappy literally asked them, like, "Hey, you weren't always the Pioneer Squad, were you?" And she's like, "No, we used to be known as the Goddess Squad." And Red Hood was a member. So we come back and we tell everybody everything. Doro's still like, "It's bullshit." Chime and Crown have absolutely no idea what we're talking about. That's all like gibberish. Like all the technical mumbo-jumbo about how Red Hood and Rappy live together and whatnot. And the Red Hood's like, "Oh, okay, I believe it. Inject me right now." And she holds out her arm. So we're like, "Oh, okay." And then Doro's like, "No." And then Red Hood is like, "It's fine. I died a long time ago. I don't need to be here. This is Rappy's life. I don't want to be taking over her life for her. Like, I'm already dead." So then we tried to, but then Red Hood grabs our hand and stops us. And we're like, "Oh, I thought you wanted us to do this." And she's like, "I do. This is Rappy. Rappy's taking over the body and not stopping you." And then we're like, "All right, well, clearly Rappy wants us to take you home first, so let's go." We then argue with Ainz a bit, because she doesn't believe all this bullshit either. But, we are the commander, and so we give orders, and off we go. On our little trek, we ask Red Hood... Oh, before we head on our trek, we asked Red Hood where her hometown is, and she's like, "No idea." And we're like, "Rah, rah, rah." So then we ask about any distinguishing landmarks, and then she takes her rifle and draws a picture in the ground using like the barrel. And Toro's like, "What the fuck are you doing? You can't treat your gun like that." And she's like, it's fine. It's just like in Red Ash again." And then Chime immediately is like, "I know exactly where that's at," and everyone's like, "The fuck?" Because Chime's the best. And her and Crown are constantly looking for treasure, and they've mapped out like the entire region. And so she's like, "Yeah, that river, blah blah blah. I've seen this town, yada yada. It's over this way. It's about 4 days walk if we walk like a strenuous travel." And we're like, "Let's do it." And she's like, "You sure you can handle that?" And we're like, "Yes." And like, "Awesome." And then Doro's like, "Hey, I want to talk to you ahead of everyone else." And Red Hood's like, "Sure." And so they head off ahead of everyone else. And then we start walking with the White Knights behind them. Neon then turns to the White Knights and is like, "Who the fuck are you guys?" and they introduce themselves. Like Chime is like, "This is her Royal Highness, the King of the Kingdom, and you can all be subjects to the kingdom too," and yada yada yada. And then it's like at some point it's like, "Wait, are you pilgrims?" And they're like, "You may call us such." And then there's a lot of banter with Neon and everybody else just about like all the crazy bullshit and whatnot. And then we remember that Snow White had mentioned that there were 2 sisters that were kind of wacky, and they are trying to build like a kingdom somewhere, and that's where Marion's gonna go. So we're like, "How's Marion?" And Crown's like, "Oh, she's good. She doesn't cry herself to sleep anymore." She's also healthy. Though she does eat bugs, drink a lot, and have a strange fascination with pornography. And we're like, fucking pioneer, man. Let's see. She then mentions that she has heard about us. And then they ask about Snow White and what she's doing. And she's like, "I don't really know. She's out doing something that has to do with retaliation or something." Like that's all they really know about it. Meanwhile, ahead of us, Red Hood and Doro are realizing they have nothing to talk about. Red Hood doesn't remember a lot, and Doro is keeping things close to her chest. So they banter about how carefree Red Hood is and what Doro's been up to and how she's like not doing whatever. Red Hood then gets like, no, at some point we wander up to start talking to Red Hood about the situation, and she gets randy with us immediately. She's like, "Hey, handsome, what are you doing?" And then she's like, "I feel weird about you." So clearly Rappy has feelings about you, and you're like, "Yes, we're friends." And she's like, "I think it's more than that." And we're like, "No." And she's like, "Look, I know Rappy might be a little like too modest for her own good, but if you want to take care of something, I can take care of it, and then I can help her out in the future." And then she starts like getting her head shaken or whatever. Like she's literally talking about us taking her dick out and taking care of it. They were like, "Okay, anyway, who are you to Rappy?" And she mentions mentor, comrade, and friend, but she doesn't remember much because of the corruption and all. Then she gets like this crazy memory, and we get like a nice visual of this like gigantic rapture core that she's standing in front of, and her just looking like Fred. And then she like shakes out of it, and she's like, "Huh." Then she talks some more, calls us out that we clearly are more. That clearly when Red Hood is close to the commander, she feels a certain way, and it seems more like love than not. And then before she can say anything else, Rappy takes over her body and shakes it some more, and is like, "Shut the fuck up." And Red is at some point it's like, "Well, at least we can hold hands." And we're like, "Sure." So we do. A bit later, Ainz and Neon are complaining about how bored they are because Doro and the White Knights and Red Hood are so fucking OP that Ainz and Neon can't even like get started fighting before everything is just completely wiped off the map. They're also super fucking aggressive, like Doro and Red Hood specifically. Like they hate the Raptures so much. So they just chit chat about how they're gonna harass Ingrid for Neon and Mustang for Ainz about getting an upgrade because they clearly are not being kept up to the level that they should be. We then ask if we can help, and they're like, "Nah, we got to take care of it ourselves." Then at some point, Doro calls them up and is like, "All right, you two, it's time for you to do something." They're like, "All right, what? Like, take that hill." And like, "Why all of a sudden do you want to take that hill?" And it's like, "Well, there might be snipers, so if you guys die, then whatever." And they're like, "Fuck you." But Ainz is like, "Fine, let's just go. It's better than doing nothing." Later on, as we travel some more, Ainz apologizes to Red Hood for not believing her the first time. And then Doro starts begging Red Hood to stay and to not change back to Rappy. And it makes more sense to keep Red Hood because she's more powerful than Rappy and all this stuff. And then Red Hood asks about the others, about Snow White, Scarlet, and Rapunzel. And Doro's like, I don't really talk to them. We don't really see eye to eye anymore. They go back and forth on living in the past, embracing the present, how Red Hood is already dead. There's nothing for her to like be alive for. This is not like a resurrection or anything. And she's not made for the present. Like she wishes to remain in the past. And then Doro gets super upset. And she talks about how Red Hood can fix everything. And then Red Hood like really gets into it with her and talks about she's not the person that she was, that she's much worse, that she's always pompous, but now she seems like she's an asshole instead as well. And then Dora gets like super dejected and like stomps off. Later on, Chime is like, all right, there's the town. We have arrived. And it's like, holy shit, Chime, you're the best. I love you so much. I do too. And then her and Crown say goodbye, and Red Hood thanks them for everything that she did. Especially because she's a stranger, and then they're like, no, you became a subject of the kingdom, therefore we're obligated to take care of you, and it's our pleasure. And let's see, even if I'm about to die. Oh, yeah, So then they summon Trombe? Yeah, I think it's Trombe. And hop on and ride off. And Trombe is super fucking fast, and we're going to, we got him before with Second Affection, and we're going to get him more next week, I want to say, when we do Lost Kingdom. Which is their event, and Nia, Ans and Nan are super impressed and like, holy shit, we need to get ourselves some of that fucking horse magic. And then yes, as we enter Red Hood's hometown, she's super impressed because nothing seems to have changed, but she doesn't have like a strong feeling like this she's actually home yet. And so maybe if we go to her old home. And so when we head over there, we get there and she starts looking around and she finds the old cassette player from Red Ash, and apparently it's solar powered and it still fucking works. So it plays that song from Red Hood, the like cowboy country song, and then Ainz and Neon tease her because the song's so fucking old. They're like, all right, grandma. And it is. It's like over 100 years old. Then Red Hood is like, all right, I got it. I'm ready to go. So she holds her on her this time, and we're about to inject her when Doro shoots the injection gun. Luckily, Ainz and Neon were expecting it, and so they block it. They then try to stop Doro from being an asshole, but they get turned up because Doro's much more powerful than them. And then she comes over and like knocks us over and is about to break the gun when Red Hood shoots her right in the gut, like real fucking bad. And then Ainz jumps her and grabs her and is about to shoot her in the head to like finish her off for good. But then Neon's like, oh, hold up, Ainz. She is done. And we see that she is like almost virtually completely immobile. Like there's no way she can fight back or do anything. Like that shot from Red Hood like really fucked her up. But because she shot and the power of Red Hood's rifle is so loud and so strong, it summoned a bunch of raptures. So the girls, which now are pretty much Ainz, Neon, and Red Hood, go to fight them. And then after they fight them, there's like a little bit of commentary about like, wow, I guess Rappy really does kind of fight like me because you guys like fell in sync like immediately like with what's going on. They're like, yeah, you'd fight like a lot like her. And then we get like a cute little like, all right, cool, I got this. And so she takes the injection gun and injects herself. And then we get this like super adorable scene where like Rappy's talking about how like at first she wished she was dead and didn't really wish to carry on or do anything, and that she was so lonely. And remember, this is like over 70 years ago. So over like the 70 years, she made friends like Ainz and Neon and Yunhua and Vesti and Emma and others, and eventually she met like her true love, where she doesn't call her true love, but I met someone the most special person that could ever be to me, which is us, obviously the commander, and that now she wants to live. And we get like a smiling Red Hood and is like, you got it, kid, keep going, we'll always be friends, don't forget that. And then Rappy like smiles back, and it's like this adorable fucking badass scene, man. Like, and they thank each other for everything they did. And then Rappy's back, and we all get super excited. We're like, all right, let's head home. And then we see Doro just kind of standing quietly by herself. So, of course, because we love all Nikkes no matter what, we head back over and get her. And then Rappy gets a little jealous because we have, like, our hand on her shoulder. And she's like, if you need to touch someone's hand, you can hold... If you need to touch somebody, you can hold my hand. And it's like, oh, Rappy, hello. Started to get a little more bold. I like that. Doro does wake up a little bit, and the five of us all return to the Ark. So a bit later on, back at the Ark, Rappy is being examined, and we're speaking with Ingrid. It seems that the Red Hood presence is completely gone, this time for good, but that there is a new power source thing near her core, and like, what do we want to do about it? Because, we're her commander, so we get to decide, and we're like, just leave it alone for now. Ingrid agrees with this, and then talks about how it might, and then we say it, and she's like, do you know what it is? And we're like, it's a memory. And she's like, that's some old bullshit. There's no such thing. Elsewhere, Doro is meeting with Birmingham. They have like this funny discussion where she calls Birmingham out for like pretending to be weaker than he really is, and he's like, all right, you caught me. It's like, what do you want for like Godicium? Like Godicium is like the super metal that the Nikkes are made of. Like there's a different way they can like form the metal or something. What do you want in return for that information? And she's like, I want a broadcasting channel. And he's like, done. And then she leaves, and after she leaves, she thinks about forgiveness, and she's like, I will never forgive. Meanwhile, we're meeting with Anderson. He seems like he's doing a lot better, and he's like, hey, have you chosen a site for the reclamation thing? And we're like, yeah, Red Hood's old town, and it's like a week away. It's got backed up to a mountain. It's got river access. It just seems like strategically it's very good. And so we talk about that, and when we mention Red Hood, Anderson gets very kind of like, oh, Red Hood's hometown. And we're like, you okay? And he's like, yeah, don't ignore me. Good, because he's the legendary commander. So, And then he talks about the Ark's still in disarray, so it might be hard to get supplies, but that there is someone that owes us a huge favor and kind of has to do what we want. And that's right, it's Seiyun. We visit next, and we're like, hey, so we need the optical camouflage, and we need supplies, and we need this and that. And she's like, what? I can't do that. I'm trying to prep for some victory celebration to get like government lobbies and whatnot. And we're like, Seiyun? And she's like, fine, just make sure you tell Enoch I did a good job. And also, when you talk about reclaiming the surface, make sure you bring us up. And we're like, no, maybe next time. And she's like, all right, fine. So we head out there, and the first thing we do is we set up a homing beacon so that we can draw all the raptors into the area, so we can kill them all, and then we can set up the beacon, or then we can set up the optical camouflage. So we're eliminating all the raptors in the area, and then we'll set up the optical camouflage. That way there's none like in the camouflage sending out signals, or none that like are familiar with the area too much. Rappy is like super confident, and so her and Ainz and Neon kill the shit out of them. But then there's like a lot of they fight like an Ultra, which is the the one that corrupted Marion, and it's the ones that corrupted Red Hood, and it's like a really old model. Someone points out that they're not really around that much anymore. But we kill the shit out of it, and then like a whole horde of raptors start approaching, like 300, and we're like, fuck, we might be in a little bit of trouble. And then a mother whale shows up, only instead of fighting the mother whale, we're like, that one looks a little different, and it does, because it's blue instead of red. And then it just like crashes into like the 300 raptors, and it sucks a bunch of them up and just like kills the shit out of all of them. And we're like, what the fuck? And then we get like a text, and it's Reptilian. So I have not spoken about Reptilian up to this point. Up to this point, and I think up to about chapter 35 maybe, of the main campaign. So I've not talked about this all. After you beat like a main campaign story, there's like little side quests that pop up, and you can go back in and you can play them, and you get like a little bit of like you get some rewards for doing that. And they all these little stories, and they involve different kind of like people. The only one that's really come up is Reptilian. So Reptilian is constant. He's a guy who loves raptors, but not in like an evil way, in a way that he thinks he can make peace with them and we can all live in harmony and everything can be great. So what he did is he built, throughout the side quests, he built himself like a rapture, like cosplay essentially. And he goes out and he tries to communicate with the raptors and learn their language so he can speak with them. And he's been doing this for like the whole game, essentially, like from the very beginning. And he's kind of like a hilarious guy, but this is where he really starts like coming into the main story. And it's when you see his costume, it doesn't come up in this level, but it starts coming up later in the main campaign, so you'll start seeing it in some of the images. But it's almost like a car with like legs. It's super adorable. But this guy like lives in there, and we save him from death numerous times and help him out and do all this stuff. But yeah, as soon as we get that message, and he's like, "Hey guys, what's up? It's me," and we're like, "Reptilian," and that is the end of chapter 26. So go ahead and like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.